Now, Mind Your Money with Cheryl Goh.
Mind Your Money, brought to you by BIPO.
That's right. Welcome to Mind Your Money with me, Cheryl Goh. Now, as more Singapore businesses look beyond our shores for growth, expanding into new markets is no longer just about finding customers. It's about finding the right people, navigating different employment laws, and managing payroll and compliance across borders. Joining us on Mind Your Money today is Albert Liew, who is Managing Director at Southeast Asia at BIPO, a global payroll and people solutions provider that helps businesses hire, pay and manage employees across more than 170 markets worldwide. And BIPO also recently made headlines after securing a $50 million strategic investment from APIS Partners, a move that underscores growing demand for technology-enabled workforce solutions as companies increasingly expand across borders. Albert, thank you for joining me in the studio. Welcome to Mind Your Money.
Thank you. Pleasure to be on this segment.
Yeah. So, you've worked with companies who are expanding across Southeast Asia and beyond. What's the biggest workforce challenge that Singapore businesses tend to underestimate when they decide to expand overseas?
I think I look at company as just being a group of people coming together to produce goods and services for the market, right? So then naturally, the most important thing is people, right? Hiring the right people. Right. After you get the right people, how do you get to hire them in a compliant manner?
Yeah.
Right. Because when you're expanding overseas today, especially in our neighboring countries and any foreign countries per se, right? I mean, you will notice that often foreign companies operating in the local markets, they are expected to operate at higher standards.
Okay.
I mean,
tighter rules,
tighter rules, and in likely the local society has higher expectations for foreign companies. They are working in a foreign country.
Yeah.
So I mean, in some ways it's good as well because then foreign companies naturally has better reputation, right?
Yeah.
But in order to upkeep that, you'll be also scrutinized more deeply by local society, and therefore being compliant is extremely important.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And I mean, as they say, when in Rome, do as Romans do, right?
Exactly.
So you got to make sure that you follow the local laws and don't step on anyone's toes in that sense.
That's right.
Okay. So many businesses focus on market opportunity and revenue potential first. But at what point should the workforce planning enter this conversation? And why does leaving it too late, down the road create problems? Yeah.
I mean, the way I see it, and I believe a lot of companies owners will probably agree as well. I mean, you have to do it ASAP, right? Right, because really, companies about people, right? And depending on whether you're a product-oriented company or a services-oriented company, the kind of resources you would require also will be different, right? Let's take, for example, if you're a product-oriented company, you already have something that is working in Singapore.
Yeah.
You want to bring it overseas.
Yeah.
What you probably want is more business-oriented people in that local market they are heading to, right? But whereas if you're a services-oriented company, then you'll likely be focusing more on operations, right? And you effectively you're gonna hire different people at the start of the journey.
Yeah.
So the planning has to be done.
Yeah. In your experience, when Singapore companies expand overseas, do they bring like some Singapore talent over, and then do they then look to hire locally, or is it a mix of both?
I think the question is about how talent dense you are in the first place in your local market.
Okay.
Everyone wants to be able to bring your best resources overseas, right?
Yeah.
But oftentimes bringing your best resources overseas also means that you're leaving some kind of void
gap
within
at home, right?
At home, right?
Yeah.
So ideally, I mean, you want to have your big guns going into a foreign market. But reality is that often you don't have enough aces, right, in your deck to play all these cards. So the likelihood is that you have to go to a foreign market and then start to look for talents.
And you train the talent there, right?
Yeah, you train talents. And so it's more like a hybrid. I mean, you're going to combine some of your resources to work with those local
With the
resources that you're going to
local-
hire. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the so-called timeline trap, where companies need people on the ground quickly, but then setting up a legal entity can take months even, right? So how common is this challenge, and what options do businesses have when speed is critical?
It's true. And I think it's not just about setting up local entities. You just imagine, if you go into a foreign country, you set up a local entity, but that doesn't mean that you have a bank account, right?
Yeah. And that could take some time.
It takes some time.
Yeah.
There are a lot of stories about whether it's in Singapore or even in neighboring countries, right? These things are getting tighter, right? It takes time. So without a bank account, how are you going to pay your employees?
Yeah.
Right?
It's basic, right? It's a basic.
Yeah. So after setting up entities, your bank accounts, and then you still have to get the right people to come in and, let's say, to process your administrative tasks, like even your payroll, right? You need people.
Yeah.
So all these things takes time, and it eats up into
The day-to-day operations,
into the
right?
day-to-day operation. Yeah.
Okay. So, Singapore businesses may often a bit naively assume that employment practices are broadly similar across markets. But what are some examples, Albert, of compliance or employment rules that, frequently catch business leaders by surprise? They're caught off guard when they expand into neighboring countries.
Yeah. And I think the most obvious one to me is that
Is it culture or?
yeah, everything kind of stems off of culture, right? But
Yeah.
the thing is that even in our neighboring countries, right, the degree of friendliness of each place to business
Okay.
is kind of different also. So what does it mean? It means that you could have stricter laws, right, protecting employees, right, and oftentimes Singapore companies going overseas, they might think that the degree of friendliness is similar.
They expect it.
Yeah, they kind of expect it, naturally, right?
Yeah.
But you end up, take for example, like severance of an employee. In different jurisdiction, it has to be handled differently. And there are like severe repercussions, if you don't do it properly.
If you don't follow the local laws.
Okay. There's reputational risk.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just about the law, right? It's also reputation of the company.
Yeah. Okay. So when companies get the people and compliance aspect wrong, you talked about the reputational risks. What are some of the real world consequences that you have seen? Worst case, did they have to perhaps exit that market?
We have seen companies not handling severance properly, right? An employee coming after the company, right? In terms of court cases.
Oh, wow.
In terms of going to the local labor bureau, right? Like our MOM, right? And the local labor bureau coming after the company. And this has not just legal implications, right? Like I said, it affects the reputation of the company. And imagine you're just starting out, and if you flout this law, or these practices very early on, you're going to spend a lot of time dealing with all these ill after effects.
Yeah, when you should be focusing on growing your business, right? So that takes away the attention and the resources as well.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Okay. But on the other hand, though, what distinguishes companies that execute their regional expansion successfully? Are there perhaps some common traits or strategies that you've observed among the businesses that do get it right?
Yeah, I think we have to accept that Southeast Asia, like let's say, oftentimes Singapore companies start off with Southeast Asia, right? It's not a homogeneous market. Culturally, it's very different.
Yeah.
Right. Even like
language, even
language, right?
Yeah.
You don't even have generally. It's not unified by a single language as well. English seems to be common, but it's not exactly that common.
Yeah.
So I think having somebody locally or somebody that really understands the local culture is very important, right? Because what fits your when you're successful in Singapore, you have good product market fit, services market fit. But when you go to a new place, it might not be so anymore, right? And you need somebody that really knows the local market to be able to tell you that, right? How do you refine your go-to-market strategy. Yeah.
So like a local go-to person that you can consult when it comes to the intricacies or the nuances of what happens locally, right?
Somebody that knows the local market, somebody that has experience operating in the local market.
Does this always have to be an internal hire, or can it be maybe a consultant even externally?
Not necessarily it has to be an internal hire. It can be also be a vendor, right? That has
a partner, right?
Yeah, a partner that has experience working in those local markets. So I think that when local Singapore business go overseas, a few avenues, right?
Yeah.
You hire your own, you get a consultant, or you work with a company that has experience operating in those markets.
Yeah.
Because what you're buying into is not just the product and services, right?
Yeah.
You're buying into the network, the relationship that the partner has already cultivated.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think just having that local expertise to guide you along, right? Because obviously Singapore would be the outsider going in. So someone to help guide us in that sense, very, very useful.
Yeah.
Okay. And any other things that companies are getting right?
I think when we are going to a new market, we have to expect that things that are working in Singapore may not necessarily work in the overseas market.
Yeah.
Because I look at Singapore as a very high trust society.
Yeah.
But if you look at the neighboring countries, may not necessarily be so, right?
Yeah.
And also, Singapore institutions are generally very well equipped, very mature.
Yeah.
But wherever you go overseas, there are a lot of institutional voids. But these institutional voids are also then opportunities for companies. So to your question about what companies are doing well, I mean, so we got to be
flexible and adaptable.
And also be very aware that some of the opportunities lie in the institutional voids.
Okay.
Unlike the opportunities
I understand. So basically you got to understand how business is done in the local context, right? And try to respect that as much as you can.
Yeah. In fact, I have this a pretty interesting story that I was in Laos. I mean, we met up with some of the Chamber of Commerce, right? Pitching what we are providing. And the secretary of the Chamber of Commerce says, in Laos, I don't really need products and services from your side. What I need is just a phone call to the local government office. So
okay.
What he's saying is that relationship matters a lot more than some of these products and services that a company may be able to provide.
Yeah. So in Chinese, they call the so-called 关系, right? That
Exactly.
relation building matters a lot more. Like sometimes people make business deals because they like you more than your whatever product or service you have to offer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That's a really good point. Something that it's not obvious, always very obvious in black and white, but it's something you have to cultivate, right? The human to human relationships.
It is.
Okay. So BIPO recently secured that $50 million US funding from APIS partners. As businesses become increasingly regional and global, Albert, how do you see technology changing the way companies manage international hiring, payroll, and compliance?
I think increasingly technology is not just to help companies become more efficient or to help to standardize their processes. It's also a means to help them navigate the legislation of each country, because you talk about processes which companies usually want to standardize, right? But when you go into different countries, you can't standardize legislation.
That's true.
Across different countries. But I think technology can help to ease that friction.
Okay.
Right, by building all the business knowledge within, like let's say even a piece of software, right?
Okay. And if there's perhaps one question that every Singapore business leader should ask themselves before they take that big step to move beyond Singapore, what would it be, Albert?
I guess I look at Singapore as a place with extremely good reputation among our in Southeast Asia and beyond, right? So why are Singapore business not doing it immediately? I think that's the question that we should ask ourselves, right? Is it because of people? Or if it's because of people, then we have all these modern tools and services that allows them to tap on a wider talent pool in the region, right? So given the good reputation of Singapore and the immense opportunity outside, 700 million people in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And I think the last I saw stats was like almost 70% under 40 years old, right? So people are at the peak spending power, and it's going to get better, right? So business leaders from Singapore, why are we not immediately expanding or thinking about expanding overseas?
Tapping on this growing consumer market, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's been a very insightful and useful chat today. Thank you so much, Albert, for coming on and sharing all your insights with us. We really appreciate it. We've been speaking today on Mind Your Money to Albert Liew, who is Managing Director, Southeast Asia at BIPO, a global payroll and people solutions provider. If you want to find out more, their website is www.biposervice.com. This is Mind Your Money on CNA938. I'm Cheryl Goh.
Mind Your Money, brought to you by BIPO.